The signal was faint, broken. A whisper in the static. "Я говорю, отказаться от my, умираем? I'm speaking, abandon us, we're dying." The voice crackled through the speakers of a small amateur radio station on the outskirts of Turin, Italy. Two brothers, Achille and Giovanni Giudica Cordiglia, sat frozen. The year was 1962. In their converted World War II bunker, surrounded by dials, wires and antennae, they had tuned into what they believed was a Soviet space frequency. What they heard next chilled them. A woman's voice. Desperate. Breathing heavily. Counting. Dvatsat Chetire, Dvatsat Piet, Dvatsat Shiast. 24, 25, 26. Then a faint hiss. Silence. Achille looked at his brother, his face pale. "That was not a test transmission," he whispered. "It was a cry for help. And it may have come from someone the world would never know." At the height of the Cold War, space was not just the final frontier, it was a battlefield. The Soviet Union and the United States were locked in a silent war of technological supremacy. Sputnik had already beeped its way into orbit in 1957, shocking the world. And in 1961, Yuri Gagarin made history as the first human in space. But behind the public triumphs, another story lingered. A darker one. A story of cosmonauts who may have launched into space, and never returned. These so-called lost cosmonauts have been a source of speculation, conspiracy, and myth for decades. But what if some of it was true? And what if their voices, fading, forgotten, still echo in the void above us? The Giudica Cordiglia brothers were not spies. They were students, enthusiasts, tinkerers with a passion for space and radio signals. From their makeshift listening post, they had managed to track multiple Soviet space missions. They recorded signals before they were ever publicly announced. And sometimes, they heard things that were never meant to be heard. In May 1960, they picked up what they believed was a cosmonaut's heartbeat. A slow, steady thump. Accompanied by a man's voice, repeating telemetry data. No official Soviet mission was acknowledged at the time. In November 1960, they intercepted a transmission that sounded like a distress call, an orbit decaying too fast. A man breathing heavily, panicking. And in February 1961, just days before Gagarin's historic flight, they captured a chilling transmission, a man reporting, "Everything is fine," before his voice slowed, faded, and disappeared. Were these real cosmonauts? Failed missions hidden from the world? To answer that, we must look at what the Soviet Union was trying to protect. The USSR space program was one of both brilliance and brutality. Headed by the genius engineer Sergei Korolev, known only as the chief designer to protect his identity, the Soviets were desperate to outpace the Americans. Korolev was a survivor. He had been imprisoned during Stalin's purges, beaten, broken, and exiled to the Gulag. But he returned, quietly building the rockets that would stun the West. In the Soviet system, failure was not an option. Or at least not a public one. Missions that succeeded were celebrated across the world. Those that failed, simply vanished from records. There are official files today that list failed launches. Some exploded on the pad. Others never reached orbit. But what if some did reach orbit, and never came back? It is here that the story of the lost cosmonauts truly begins. Take, for example, the haunting case of Vladimir Ilyushin. A decorated test pilot and son of famed aircraft designer Sergei Ilyushin, Vladimir was rumored to have been launched into space on April 7, 1961, 5 days before Gagarin. According to conspiracy theorists and some Western media reports at the time, the mission went horribly wrong. Ilyushin's capsule reportedly failed re-entry and crashed in China. He was supposedly captured, later returned and kept silent under strict secrecy. The Soviets denied everything. Ilyushin himself never confirmed the story. He died in 2010 taking his secrets with him. Was he truly a cosmonaut? Or merely a victim of Cold War misinformation? Then there is the case of the lost woman, the transmission recorded by the Giudica Cordiglia brothers in May 1961. In their archives, the woman's voice, calm at first, becomes increasingly panicked. She reports rising temperatures. Her breathing quickens. Her heartbeat, monitored live, accelerates. The words she speaks in Russian are heartbreaking. "I can see flames. Everything is burning." Then, nothing. To this day, no Soviet mission aligns with that date. No woman was acknowledged in space until Valentina Tereshkova in 1963. But the brothers remained adamant. They had heard a woman dying in space. The Soviet Union's secrecy made verifying such claims nearly impossible. Launch failures were covered up. Cosmonauts who didn't fly were erased from training photos. There were rumors of entire crews lost in orbital decay or failed returns. But historians and aerospace experts argue there's little hard evidence. The argument is this: space missions leave traces, debris, radar logs, telemetry. Even secret launches require immense logistics. And yet, what if the Soviet Union had managed to bury the truth? As the US pushed toward the moon, the Soviets scrambled to keep pace. Their N-1 lunar rocket failed spectacularly 4 times. Massive explosions, one with the force of a small nuclear bomb, were hidden from the world for decades. And amidst all this chaos, cosmonauts in training vanished from photographs. One name stands out: Grigory Nelyubov. A brilliant pilot, Nelyubov was part of the original cosmonaut group. But he never flew. Officially, he was dismissed for disciplinary reasons. He later died in 1966, allegedly stepping in front of a train. But rumors persist that he died in a failed mission or was silenced. His image was airbrushed from group photos. Erased. Forgotten. Back in Italy, the Giudica Cordiglia brothers eventually grew silent. Their bunker, Torre Bert, was decommissioned. The tapes, dusty and crackling, were stored away. Over the years, critics questioned the authenticity of the recordings. Audio experts challenged the accents, the background noise, the signal types. But others pointed to how often the brothers got things right. They had correctly predicted several Soviet launches. They had picked up Gagarin's re-entry days before it was announced. In 2008, a documentary by the BBC revisited the story. The recordings were analyzed. Still, no definitive conclusion could be drawn. The voices remain mysterious. Trapped in time. Trapped, perhaps, in orbit. Whether myth, mistake, or misdirection, the story of the lost cosmonauts reveals something deeper. A truth about how far we are willing to go to win. To be first. Behind every shining achievement in space there are failures. Behind every name we remember there may be others, whose names were never written. In 2012, Russian archival historian Alexander Zeleznyakov stated, "There were no secret man launches. But many who trained never flew. And some paid with their lives long before leaving the ground." The first age of space exploration was not clean. It was brutal, political, ruthless. And yet, through all of that, human courage remained. The young men and women who trained in secret, who strapped themselves into untested machines, who risked death not for glory but for discovery, they deserve to be remembered, even if we'll never know all their names. Today the stars are quieter. The space race has evolved into something more cooperative, though competition still hums beneath the surface. The ISS orbits overhead, built by former rivals. Private companies chart new courses to the Moon and Mars. But the ghosts of the past are still with us. In every launch, in every countdown, in every silent pause before ignition, there is an echo of those who went before. Perhaps, somewhere above us, still orbiting in darkness, is the forgotten hardware of a failed mission. A capsule without a name. A silent tomb of ambition. And maybe, just maybe, a voice that once said, "Please, don't forget us." We may never know the full truth of the lost cosmonauts. Perhaps it was a myth. Perhaps it was real. But what we do know is this: the path to the stars was not paved only in triumph. It was built with sacrifice. So tonight, when you look up at the night sky, remember those who dared to go and were never heard from again. Their legacy is not only in what they may have done, but in what they made possible for others. If this story moved you, if you love powerful tales from the hidden history of space, subscribe to this channel. There are so many more secrets among the stars, and we're just getting started. Thank you for watching. And to the ones we lost, wherever you are, we remember you.